A minute after 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, the final one of November 2024, alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Hope it went well. I hate the term Black Friday, but whatever. Happy Thanksgiving Friday.
Yeah, someone who worked in retail for a while, Black Friday sucked.
Yeah, and that really didn't start because, I mean, it's been a thing, that's been like an insider term in retail for decade upon decade, but it's not really
because
been.
It sucked.
Yeah, but it's been in the. It's been in like the everyday vernacular only for like a little while. And I'm like, it just has such an ominous feel. I get what it means and all that stuff, but Thanksgiving Friday. So just happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody is nice and full. I know I am. Had some leftovers. I've had leftovers twice today because I took a whole bunch of ham and made like a breakfast sandwich with ham and egg.
There you go.
Yeah. That was good. And I had some turkey and green bean casserole. And one of my daughters makes amazing homemade yeast rolls that, I mean, seriously, dude, they're so bleeping good. When you were a little kid and like really the best thing that you had is like rolls or biscuits or something, you know?
Just bread by itself.
Just whatever. Yeah, even just bread.
Yeah.
You know? But like I had to stop because she made like 2 batches, right? And so the first one, she's just kind of passing them around like 30 minutes before we ate yesterday afternoon. And I was like, no. Don't do it, Jay. Don't do it.
You did it, didn't you?
I had 1, but I could have had like 5. Like you all remember like Quincy's, around here. I think that I've never been, but I people tell me that Texas Roadhouse, is that what it's called? The restaurant chain has the yeast rolls.
Yeah, those are all right.
But like Quincy's, if you're like me and you grew up around here in the South, Quincy's Steakhouse, they had those, they had the big fat yeast roll. Even had the mascot guy, like all happy-go-lucky, big fat piece of bread. Those things were the bomb.
Is the mascot guy just walking around the restaurant?
He just waddles around like a pice of bread. I don't know if I never actually, I did see, he was at
walking around like the Grim Reaper. That'd be kind of ominous.
So, but anyway, fat and happy. Everybody's good. And football, parade. Watched a couple of Christmas shows last night and checked in on the Dolphins and Packers. Saw the Packers were winning comfortably and said, eh.
Dolphins had a chance in that second half.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
They had a drive and had a little bit of a chance, but that was about the extent of it.
The most drama yesterday occurred in the final half minute of the Bears-Lions game, and it has resulted, if you have not yet heard, in Matt Eberflus being fired today by the Chicago Bears because it's really all his fault. It was one of the more surreal moments in football that I've seen, and we'll talk about that with Langston coming up a little bit later on. But Thomas Brown, by the way, has been named interim head coach of the Chicago Bears, the former Georgia back and Gamecock assistant. So we'll touch on all those things, but obviously the story of the day and the story of the week continues to be Carolina-Clemson. As we speak, ESPN Bet has Carolina as a 3-point underdog. The over-under has not changed all week long, held very steady at 49.5. The latest FPI computer projection is moving positively for South Carolina, now a 43.2% chance to win the game. So the ESPN computer makes Carolina an underdog. The bookmakers installed Carolina as an underdog, and I think a lot of people felt that line would move, and it hasn't. It hasn't. And yet, Elijah Campbell, virtually every national prognosticator, every national analyst, whomever you choose to look at, none of whom live inside the borders of South Carolina, are picking the Gamecocks to win this football game. So the question isn't like, what am I missing? What are you missing? What are they missing? What are we missing? Anything like that. Look, and as we've said, a spread is not a number that is a prediction. A spread is a number that is designed to part you from your money. But I suppose the betting public does not feel as strongly about the Gamecocks as those who analyze college football do. Does that tell us anything? I'm not so sure. I think most people believe, and I would be one of them, that South Carolina has been more heavily tested through the year than Clemson has. And Clemson's in the games against the two best teams Clemson has played, they lost. And And in their two next best games, both on the road in conference play, at Virginia Tech, at Pittsburgh, they had good games. Clemson won by 10 in Blacksburg, and Cade Klubnik had that big 50-yard-ish run 2 weeks ago against Pittsburgh. Again, the Panthers, I thought, much like the Bears yesterday, their late game clock management was poor, and it allowed the Tigers an opportunity to have the ball again. If Pittsburgh was a little bit better, perhaps they find a way to milk that clock. But you might say the same thing, not so much about better, but if you don't have Luther Burden score a touchdown with 1:15 to go, maybe Missouri finds a way to win that game by not giving Lenora Sellers and the Gamecocks the ball back. But that doesn't really matter at this point in time. So I think this is overall, I think talent-wise, it's going to be an evenly matched game. South Carolina has won 5 in a row. 3 of them they have won rather comfortably. You go back to the last loss, and it's what most people would call, Elijah, a good loss at Alabama. Again, we've talked about that game a bunch as saying, hey, listen, you saw real progress and growth from South Carolina that day. Yes, it was a painful loss because nobody likes to lose by 2 points, home, road, neutral, whatever. But you did. But you saw things that made you say, all right, keep trending, and you're going to be just fine. They haven't lost since. So I feel great about how we felt, you and I and many, 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 many others coming in on that Monday after that Alabama loss. South Carolina played a good game that day. They just didn't win the football game. So what does it tell you, sir? That in terms of those who want to win money on this, not much movement. But in terms of those who make money doing it by talking about it and analyzing it and discussing it, all believe South Carolina is the team that wins the game.
It tells me that different people view home field advantage a little differently. I think if you're just looking at the trends of these teams, these two different teams over the course of the last 6 weeks, it's very fair to say that South Carolina is playing better football at this moment in time, defensively and offensively, especially with the progression of Lenora Sellers. We've known that this South Carolina team has one of the best defensive units in college football. We've known that Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart are the 2 best pass rushers in college football. And we've known that this team, at their best on offense, can run the ball well because Rocket Sanders has given you a pretty good sample size of what he can do. At Arkansas, he gave you a pretty good sample size of what he could do in terms of scoring earlier on in the year. But what you didn't know was that Lenora Sellers would become this, is that he would be this good this quickly. Because he's had 2 300-yard passing games the last couple of games. Yes, I know one was against Wofford, but if he doesn't throw for over 300 plus against Missouri, you don't beat Missouri.
Right.
And I think if you would have asked every Gamecock fan back in September if they would need in one of the biggest games of the year, Lenora Sellers to throw you 300 plus yards to win you the football game, would you believe it happens? I think a lot of them, if you gave them a lot of truth serum, would say no. And that just goes to show the leaps and bounds he's been able to grow just since the beginning of the season. And I think that has helped, in turn, turn this offense into one of the more well-rounded, consistent units in the SEC from mid-October on. I know the entire year cumulatively, the stats in terms of SP Plus and everything, maybe not as high as some of the other teams in your conference, but if you just take the data from mid-October on, I'd be hard-pressed to find a lot more better functioning units in college football right now. A lot of that's also dependent on Josh Simon's health because he is such a large part of that offense. But what this tells me is that the betting public is buying in heavily in Clemson's home field advantage in a rivalry like this. And when you look at the opposing side of what the national prognosticators are talking about, what they're looking at is they're looking at a lot of the football matchups. I think if you play this game on a neutral field, South Carolina's probably a 2.5 point favorite, and I think the money probably be going in towards South Carolina. If you just played this thing in, I don't know, Charleston, that's probably how that money would flow. It is an evenly matched game, but I think a lot of people that are in our business from a national standpoint are just looking at how much different this South Carolina team is now in late November compared to what they were maybe in September, whereas other bettors might be looking at Clemson and the record and the fact they've just been able to win a lot of their games recently.
I don't know how much this matters as people try to analyze this game or just get your own thoughts in it as a fan. Is Clemson, I've asked you this, and we're rhetorically, of course, I was just talking to our good friend Michael Haney, who's in town with his family, and he's going to stop by a little bit later on and hang with us for a bit. Is Clemson as good or better than any, whatever combination of Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, or Missouri? I'm not saying they're worse. I'm not telling you they're better. Are they the same? All I know is South Carolina's 3-1 in those games, and the only loss was by 2 points at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So that tells me South Carolina is perfectly fine in terms of going toe-to-toe. And in 2 of those 4 games, they beat the heck out of the other guy. Now, is Clemson better than Oklahoma? Yes, especially on offense.
Definitely.
Especially on offense. But Oklahoma's defense is really good. And I thought Carolina held their own. Because, if it doesn't, who knows, man? You don't get that start. I don't know what it's like, but you did, so who cares, right? Will Clemson be able to scheme up and do things a little bit more against their own grain the way Missouri did the other day? That'll be what's interesting. That to me, that's the thing. How much, and I think you and I talked about this earlier in the week, how much, if any, does Clemson borrow, if you will, from the Missouri tape and say, we got to go do that? Because I like Maffa. I like Klubnik. I think they don't have a burden, but I think they got a few guys. They got some good receivers. They've got a patchwork offensive line right now, which could really help South Carolina, but it's still a talented line. But if you're a Carolina fan, a Carolina player, and you just try to measure opponents and strength and those things, and I'm not trying to discount the Wofford Terriers, but if you go back to your last 4 conference games, Vanderbilt's in there too. I need to throw Vandy in, and I think Clemson's better than Vanderbilt.
Certainly.
But you've gone up against some talented teams, and you've won them. So how good is Clemson? Now I'm not sure. I saw a stat that was a little dubious. Clemson has the most double-digit wins against Power 4 conference opponents. It's 6. But only did you and I do the math?
We did the math, yeah. Only 1 is currently bowl eligible.
And that was, now I forget which one. Because it was NC State, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech.
Stanford.
Virginia.
And Virginia Tech will play each other both at 5 wins. So one of them has to win.
Yeah, one of them will go to a bowl. Yeah. And if State beats Chapel Hill, they go to a bowl. So
the max 2, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Max.
So, I mean,
2 of them.
In a lot of places, might this be, as Elijah said, might this be slightly favored toward Carolina if it's anywhere other than Memorial Stadium? Perhaps. But I think it's a really, really tight matchup. But I do think South Carolina's playing good football. We'll get Langston's take on it. He joins us on the other side of the break. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli has covered both these teams in person this season, writing on the beat for the AP. Pete will join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Haney's going to stop by. Picks contest, sound from the coaches, updates on what's going on around college football right now. So a very busy Football Friday coming at you. This is the Postgame Show. Tell you about our great friends at Palmetto Propane. A little chilly out there today, huh? And tonight, over the weekend, might be time for you to upgrade that fireplace. They're ready to help you out. The Palmetto Propane Hearth and Patio Home Store showrooms feature premium brands of gas logs, Real Fire, White Mountain Hearth, many others. And when you stop in to one of the Hearth and Patio Home Store showrooms, you can see and feel what these fireplaces are like. So if you've been thinking for a while about upgrading to gas, whether it's propane or natural gas from a wood-burning fireplace, Now's a great time to check them out. Gift ideas in there, too, especially for those outdoor cooks in your life. Grills from Big Green Egg, Tech, Fire Magic, Traeger, all the accessories, rubs, sauces to go with it, too. Palmetto Propane features 5 Hearth and Patio home store showrooms: Aiken, West Columbia, Batesburg, Lexington, and across the Savannah River in Augusta, Georgia. Find the one near you. Learn a whole lot more. In business since 1959, PalmettoPropane.com. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Football Friday. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Happy holidays now. We can start to say that more officially. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. And the newest voice in our production team joins us now from his home in Dallas. Heard that spot the other day, and I was like, oh, man, a storm is coming. I got all nervous. And then I was like, nah, it's all good. Just make sure your roof is good. Langston Moore joining us now after a big turkey day out in Big D. First home win for the Dallas Cowboys. Did I hear right? Since like Bill Clinton was president or something? Man, it's been a long time. How are you?
Man, I had to do a double take myself. I knew it was bad, but let's not let stats and statistics and, history ruin a good day. Like, I was like, oh, my goodness. And then we talking about Mike McCarthy. I know he wasn't around for all of these, but come on, man. But, it was a good day in Dallas yesterday. And, we won. Oh, not we won. The city won.
Yeah,
so,
the city won. Yeah. You know what? In all seriousness, man, before we get into the hot and heavy of tomorrow's game, super, super happy and proud for and of Rico Dowdle, who has become, in a very dismal year, a real bright spot for the Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely, man. And I hated it for him because, like, us in Gamecock Nation know how phenomenal Rico Dowdle was as an athlete, as a player, and you don't make it this long in the NFL as a running back. And, he had to change positions. We didn't really ask him to do a lot of that, but, hats off to him. We knew he was a phenomenal athlete, but, they haven't been doing much to try to help him and help the other guys around him, making Rico, carry the rock as if he's Emmitt Smith from 1996, but that's a whole different side. Proud for him, proud for Jalen Brooks. Israel Mukwamu. It feels like the whole JV Gamecock team is on the Dallas Cowboys, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm glad those boys getting checked.
Yeah. And, look, there's still a few games left. If Dallas could find a way to go on a little bit of a roll, maybe make somebody nervous, but
oh, Jay, there you go with hope.
It's not for me. It's not for me.
That's right.
It's for Mrs. Phillips.
There is somebody in your household that may
It's for
have
Mrs. Phillips.
Hope,
yes. She likes since Rico is from Asheville, which is a city that we adore. So there's that double goodness, and now for her triple goodness for Rico. But no, I do it for her. If the season ended today, Langston Moore, my team is going to be in the playoffs, which I think actually has been since Bill Clinton was president. So.
It's amazing.
At least Obama. I know that much, man. At least Obama.
And it feels like the quarterback's been around and playing football just as long as since 1996. So again, however you want it to work, man. It's only a matter of time before the Broncos get going, way before the Cowboys are going to get going consistently. So I think you have that to look up to, Jay.
Whatever it takes. You played in this rivalry. You know it well. Only the 7th time, Langston, in the history of well over 100 games that both teams are ranked when the game will kick off. South Carolina, by the way, is 5-1 in those games. You played in the one loss. We won't talk about that right now. But with the CFP implications, man, the argument is being made in certain circles that this is the biggest Carolina-Clemson game ever. I'm not ready to label it that because that might be a little too subjective. But nevertheless, you get what people are saying about it.
100%. And 7 times that this has happened, and as you start to think about it, it's messing with my theory that, wherever Langston Moore was, we're going to lose. But once Langston Moore leaves, we win. But I was around those other times, and that was the historic 5 in a row, the Clowney days. I was there. I was privy to see all that as a sideline reporter. So, kids, just because you don't make it as a player doesn't mean there's not hope for you some way, somehow. But to see those things, and it's like we were talking about a little bit earlier on some text messages, it feels like it's kind of lining up to be one of those hard-hitting kind of games. And this is the thing I say about all of the Clemson-Carolina battles, like, you got to I hate to you got to throw the record books out. Sometimes it really seems like it's that way, but just the emotion, the familiarity, it's similar to like watching Detroit playing Chicago yesterday. Like there's so much familiarity with those inter-squad matches, just like Denver doesn't have a chance against Kansas City, but hold up a second. There's so much familiarity, so much closeness. But you couple that with this being an in-state deal, some guys are a parent away from going to one school or another school. Some Carolina guys who are really garnet and black heavy. Some guys that I'm thinking about, they used to wear purple pants when we were little kids growing up around James Island. We won't call these people out now, but they're Gamecocks in their hearts, true hearts right now. But it's just really interesting that all of this stuff happens, and you got to kind of throw all of that out the way, but ultimately you still have to play football. The team that blocks the best, doesn't have a bunch of turnovers, gets after the quarterback during those times, and it really runs the football, has been the one specifically in that gamut of games that you're talking about where we've been 5-1 because we've been phenomenal across the board with that, with great quarterback play, running the football. I'm thinking about Clowney. I'm thinking about all the different guys during that time, and it feels like this is lining up for us to do that. But the Gamecock in me, Jay, says, hold on, just something doesn't feel right when everything's it's like my man's daddy, man. Something was going right, man. I just got to throw this monkey wrench into this, man. Something don't feel like it's going right. So don't listen to me, Gamecock Nation. Just hold on tight to what these guys have been doing all year, and that's playing a lot of great defense, not turning the football over. Oh, yeah, and the ascension of this guy, number 16. I think this is going to be just a continual progression of him and the quarterback play that we've been waiting for years. Forgive me, Connor Shaw, but this is the one. That guy is the one I think he's going to continue that Saturday.
Langston, you mentioned the monkey wrench being thrown into things, and this entire week, the only thing in my head where I've been really concerned about for the Gamecocks in terms of that prospective monkey wrench you alluded to might be the health of Josh Simon, because he's been such a key part, whether it be catching the ball in the flat, being the I guess really the easy button in your passing game, being a good blocker on the perimeter for your screen game, having the experience he does. He's done a lot for this offense. His status still unclear, I guess would be the best way of putting that. But if you don't get a Josh Simon on Saturday, how do you see this South Carolina offense trying to kind of recreate production in his absence against a really good Clemson defense?
Right, and that's the other thing people got to, remind themselves. Clemson's defense has been up there, and they're kind of built kind of similar to how our defense has been built, and that's been how they've been built to win championships from the defensive line, similar to SEC teams. We won't get into that. But Josh has been the guy who we've been really leaning on heavily, specifically 16 has been leaning on heavily, not just the Vanderbilt game, but the Texas A&M game, the Missouri game, the games that we've really turned these corners and had such a phenomenal run these last couple of weeks. And that's one of the quarterback's best friends, besides – you're running the football, just having Josh and the design from Dow Loggins and those guys, just having those little tight end plays, those things to get just to kind of like the easy layups in basketball for the North. And again, it's still kind of, we have enough talent and there's enough eclectic guys in there, but Josh has been the one that's been doing it consistently. So again, you want your quarterback to kind of have his favorite toy, but hopefully the offensive coordinators and these guys have been seeing, some of the things that have been coming. He's been banged up for the last little bit of weeks. So let's make sure that we're putting some different guys in place to give him some comfortability, talking about Lenoir and some familiarity to run some of those similar plays. And again, we got enough tight ends and different guys, H-backs, that we'll fill in with those places. And again, that's a testament to the recruiting and these guys have made some of these plays earlier on in the season. So, maybe asking them to lean on a little bit more, hey, this is when legends are made. Can I remind you of a guy with a mullet named Steve Tannehill and a bunch of other guys, and there's some Clemson guys who have done some things that have made themselves famous, but we won't talk about that. We'll call that cheating on our side. This is Gamecock Radio.
He is the former Gamecock D-lineman team captain and a longtime NFLer, husband, father, softball expert, barbecue aficionado, children's book author, and so much more. Our good friend Langston. More from him on this Gamecock defense, especially what they might do against a banged-up Clemson offensive line. And he mentioned already, did Langston, that Bears-Lions game, a surreal final half minute yesterday that led to the Bears firing their head coach. But was it on him? We'll get Langston's take on that as the post-game show rolls on. Tell you about our good friends at Minuteman Press. They are quite literally a block away, right over there on Gervais Street here in downtown Columbia. And now with the holidays upon us, what a great time for you as a small or medium business owner to call the folks at Minuteman Press and find out what they can do to help you thank your customers, promote your business, make sure people know, hey, come in, we're ready to help you out with anything you need holiday-wise, depending, of course, on what it is that you do in your business. And that's just it. It can be very difficult sometimes to navigate through and make sure that potential customers and clients know who you are, what you do, where you are, and when you do it. Well, that's what Minuteman Press is all about. More than 300,000 promotional items, plus design services, printing services. What a great time for you to get holiday cards to send to your clients, right? Maybe little gift sets. They can do that for you. And when you're out in the community making sure that you promote yourself, Minuteman Press is ready to help you out. Check them out at Minuteman.com. Welcome back in. Post-game show rolling on this Thanksgiving Friday. Jay and Elijah with you. Langston Moore joining us from his home in the Dallas Metroplex. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli will be with us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. And speaking of good friends, Michael Haney will be stopping by a little bit later on. He's in town. Got a little gig going on later, but he just wants to talk football. So we'll do that with Mr. Haney.
Good
coming
day to
up
talk ball.
In just a bit. How different, Mr. Moore, you and your wife are South Carolinians, but you live in Texas. How different over the years has the Thanksgiving meal become as residential Texans but South Carolina natives?
It feels like the barbecue is sliding in and the seafood is kind of sliding out a little bit. Like, the seafood dressing a little bit. So again, I'll play with it around a little bit, but I don't have enough, close low country guys to be like, come on over here and beat out this other half pan of oyster dressing. You know what I'm saying? I don't really have that out here. So now it's burnt ends and trying to find that. So I feel that's what less seafood and more Texas barbecue.
Yesterday, instead of doing a whole bird, I smoked turkey breasts, slow smoked them for like 4 hours. And I basically had like turkey breast burnt ends. And I'm going to tell you something, my man. They were awesome. Now, they were small, but I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. So those
you did your brine with it too?
Yeah. Did the overnight.
Oh, it's official then.
Yeah.
I already know. It's official.
Yeah. No, I did the brine. You got to do the brine for turkey. You just got to. But, yeah, we only had 10. And I just, sometimes a whole bird, that's a lot. And it takes up the whole oven, or even if I want to put it on the ground, I just, you know what? People just want, I know what they want. So I just give the people what they want. And I'll tell you what else, too.
What's up?
The honey baked ham, like I free plug for the brand name. Like it ain't like this is not like Kleenex. Like my wife and my girls want that one. Like I was like, yo, I can smoke a ham. Like and they're like, Dad, I'm sure you can.
Man, we got McDonald's at home. It feels like that, right, Jay? Like we got a ham at home. No. I want that golden foil. I want that honey baked ham. I saw a man get upset the other day because not all honey baked hams come with the bone in like they used to and wrapped up in the foil. Some come like in plastic bags now, like chicken. And this man was about to lose his mind the other day, Jay, in honey baked ham. And I was like, I think you might be right, sir. I want to make sure my bone is in my honey baked ham order as well. But
yeah, because that bone gets used. Like tomorrow, that bone's going in some soup in my house.
We making some 13 bean soup, lima beans. Well, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, what we talking about right now?
But yeah, you hit it right. It's just like, it's the Eddie Murphy bit. Like, there ain't no green pepper in McDonald's.
Right. This don't taste like the molasses they use on honey baked ham. Exactly.
So
McDonald's don't put no green pepper in that.
Bread. I love that bit.
Right.
Anyway,
exactly. So. Also, Jay, not to cut you off.
Yes.
I think we're in the same elk now. We're not making a whole. We just made wings yesterday, just turkey wings, instead of making a whole because, the kid wants a little bit of turkey but don't want a whole bird.
Right.
And so that's how I know I've crossed the threshold, Jay, into full-on adulthood. I'm just making what I want to make at this point.
Well, it was just easier to do, but they were really good, so I did enjoy that. And, my mom, you called it oyster dressing. My mom called it oyster pie, same thing. And I miss that now because nobody really wants to eat it but me. And so I was like, should I make an oyster pie? Everybody's like, you're going to be the only one that eats it. And I was like, all right, I'll do it some other time then. But we had a good time. We had a good time yesterday. All right, let's get back into some football here. The interior of the Clemson line, the offensive line, could be a little bit beat up. Does that really change any approach in terms of what South Carolina wants to do up front on defense?
I don't think it changes the approach, but I think it'll change the approach as far as how Clemson will attack us. So, again, think a lot of stuff that went on the Missouri game where they lost their center who was one of the tops in the country. And, again, the question was how are those folks over there, Elijah Drinkwitz, those folks going to come up in game plan? So a lot of screen draws, different types of deals where maybe see some zone stretch on the front side, get our guys running one way and doing some man power blocking on the backside, doing some different things just to get that interior zone going. And again, the last time we kind of put these things on tape, we didn't really stop them too well. And so that's really one of my biggest fears is that we get into a game where it has to be relentless stopping the run because they do have Moffitt, they do have a bunch of different parts. They just don't have the talented offensive line, and some of the guys that are been in there to replace some of the guys who are talented have been replacements of replacements. So that bodes well for us, but I also know, just like I said, man, I've seen games where a guy was a third-string center who started a game and just worked the whole starting SEC lineman across from him, and I'll raise my hand for that one. So, again, all these things, all of it is happening. I think the biggest thing is just going out and respecting the game, playing game clean from the defensive side of the point from South Carolina. Don't get into all the, trying to, the emotions of it. And that's why I also think a 12 o'clock start is going to benefit us because, again, a lot of times, man, you're waking up at 5 as a player, 6. That bodes well because that's our practice schedule. And by the time you figure out that, man, it's Saturday, it's early morning, all of that's out the window, and the fans aren't inebriated enough to say certain things. So by the time everybody wakes up, the guys on the field have already been playing for a little bit. So to answer your question, just be aware of the screen draws early on and just don't go out there and try to be like a blind dog in a meat house because there are going to be opportunities for us to get after the quarterback, and we've been doing that well all year. Just don't try to do it in one play or the first series.
Langston, when preparing for the show on Wednesday, I came across something that I wasn't really expecting to, or that it really stood out, and that was that Clemson's had 6 kicks blocked this year. and that's more than almost any team in the country. And 4 of those came from what I would consider collapses on the left side of the protection unit. How big of a role do you think that can factor into a game like tomorrow's if all things are pretty even on both offense and defense?
Like I said, I think this game, on paper, we feel Carolina should be more of a dominant team, but I just think that's not going to be the case. And if there was ever going to be a time for Beamer ball to really rear its head and the tip of the spear be the special teams, it's going to be tomorrow. With the block kicks, like you said, trying to set up a score or getting a score on special teams. The last time we were up there, that was something very big for us for that big win. Again, it felt – a lot of folks didn't give us a chance. They were the team. And, again, coming off that Tennessee win, special teams played a big part for us from that time. We hit some big kicks right before the half, similar deal. So, again, that's what we're going to really have to make sure. I think that's going to have to be kind of the tip of the spear for us, even though we've been leading with the defense all year. And, of course, like I keep touting, Lenore Sellers feels like he's levitating when I see him move around in the world like he's just – all of that, not to anoint the boy too early, but again, just touch his heel and he feels, but just in case he's not in evangelical form tomorrow, I think special teams is going to have to be the deal that get us. So make sure Jay shows you the text that I showed him that hopefully we've hired the Wofford special teams coach because, one, that team a couple weeks ago, they gave us all fits, but they've been giving fits all year round. But I felt like some of the attitude that we got to have going into the game tomorrow with our special teams really trying to be as aggressive as possible. And to your point, there's been a lot of opportunities for block kicks. Let's go ahead and get one of those and get that Lori Lisa money up out of there so they don't have that money for Christmas.
Nice plug. $1,200 up for grabs tomorrow. Man, that'll make your Christmas a lot brighter. It'll make you, if you're a Carolina fan, feel real good. You have to register. You better do that real quick. 1075thegame.com. The Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. What a great plug from Langston Moore. By the way, speaking of websites, athletesandartists.net. Now that we are fully into the holiday season, what a great opportunity for you to learn more about the Just a Chicken series of books for that young Gamecock reader or other young reader in your life. You got Just a Chicken Little, Used to Was a Rooster. So check those out. The merch, the swag, as the kids would say. Plus the Button Gut podcast. Maybe for those of you driving up early tomorrow, check out some Button Gut or the Fight podcast. Relive what happened up there 20 years ago, like this week-ish. I don't know the exact date, but it's been 20 years, which is crazy. Just means we're getting old. Crazy. But check all that out and more, athletesandartists.net. All right, before we get you out of here, I got about a minute and a half. What the hell were the Chicago Bears doing in the final minute of their game yesterday, man?
Figuring out a way to do what they should have done last year, which was get Matt Eberflus up out of here. I mean, he's a great guy. He's got a cool little haircut. He's got the part going. But, like, the look on this dude's face at the end of the game and subsequent games the last couple weeks, yes, it's been very close. It feels like I'm just talking directly to Kevin Roche because he's listening to this. I feel like he's just been in his bathroom crying in his underwear the last couple weeks every time this goes on because I know he hasn't been watching it live, Jay. He's got a newborn. So, of course, you got to save. You hadn't been looking on social media. And then you do all that to go in your bathroom, and it's just like, oh, they blocked the kick? Oh, they didn't call timeout? Oh, my goodness. Oh, we firing the coach today? So, again, I think this was something that should have been done last year. They were doing all the right things, but keeping the coach felt like the wrong move last year. And so now – a little bit behind the 8 ball. Is it going to be Thomas Brown? Is the former Gamecock offensive coordinator for 3-4 months? Is that fit to be the interim head coach?
He's the interim.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right. And I think they'll have success because Caleb feels like he's been taking the next step. There's been a lot of things. Defensively, we'll see how they handle up because, again, that was we can't get rid of Matt Eberflus. He has the defense. Man, there's other guys who can call that same defense and get those guys fired up because for him being the master motivator, I don't know, man. I don't know. Billy Napier, I love him, but between Billy Napier and Matt Eberflus, I don't know who's more of a wet blanket when it comes to motivation. I couldn't get up for any of those guys.
Yeah, it was surreal to watch that one yesterday. 10 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Thanksgiving Friday afternoon. Hope your day went well yesterday. Hope your leftovers are keeping you nice and full. Unless you've eaten them all.
They will keep you nice and full.
I'm probably going to go do something else tonight, though. I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean,
you say you've had enough Thanksgiving food already?
I mean, if there's a little bit left, like I know we have some turkey and ham left for sure, and I'll be nibbling on that for the next day or so. But I mean, we ate yesterday about 1:30, and then leftovers around 7:30 last night. I forget exactly, somewhere in there. And like I said, I had some ham this morning on like a breakfast sandwich. It was really good, actually. And then I had leftovers for lunch. So tonight, I don't know what I want. You got any recommend? What should I go get? I mean, I need like a pizza, or maybe just a
pizza's a good palate cleanser from all Thanksgiving food.
Or like, I don't know, a burger even. That's different.
I'd get pizza. That sounds really good.
Yeah, I could probably go for it.
That's what's about to start making me feel hungry.
The thing is, my kids are all home, so they'll ultimately, unfortunately, I will, even if I'm paying for it, I'll lose the debate if that's not what they want. But I don't mind because they're not home that much. Again, our oldest daughter hadn't been in Columbia. We've seen her a few times. She hadn't been in Columbia since our second daughter graduated from Carolina back in May. So we saw her. She came down to the beach with us, but she flew into Myrtle Beach and then came down to Litchfield. And we have seen her in Washington, where she lives, a couple times. So I'll let her choose because she has to go home tomorrow. So wife,
she gets the deciding vote.
Yeah, my wife will pretend to cry for a bit, and then by Sunday, my wife will be like, "Thank God they're all gone." No, I'm kidding.
She'll actually enjoy the quiet.
She's actually not that way, man. It's actually not that way. So. Just sounds fun to say. But anyway, hope your holiday went well. Did you watch any of the parade?
I don't usually watch the parade.
Not a parade guy?
Yeah.
No, we had the parade on.
I feel like parades are one of those things. If you've seen one, you've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, well, the Carolina band was in the parade yesterday. That was cool.
I saw that on Twitter.
They played a Christmas song, and then they launched into the fight song as they left the little square area there in front of Macy's. That was pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was cool.
Excited for them. That's really neat.
Saw a few of the balloons that everybody likes. We don't like watch the parade. The parade is on, and you like look up like, oh, here's so and so.
Oh, there's the big Snoopy balloon.
Yeah, and my girls are all like big Broadway fans, so whatever the latest show is, they do something. So there's all that. And then they of course had to watch the dog show for a bit, and then I got to watch football after that was over.
Who won the dog show?
Some pug for the first time
that's
ever.
An upset. Yeah.
Yeah. First time ever.
The pug winning the dog show. And I'm about that pug life, so I'm not trying to degrade the breed of dog here.
Hang on. Because
pug winning the entire dog show would have been like San Diego State winning that national title in men's basketball a couple of years ago.
The pug's name is Vito, like Vito Corleone.
Oh, wow.
Vito. First pug to win. Yeah, way to go, Vito.
A pug.
Ultimately, 2,000 dogs entered, and then they had, the finals. That's fun. I love dogs.
I love
dogs.
Love watching the dogs.
It's great. So I don't mind that. And, typically Lions Bears would have been and then I thought the Lions would kick the crap out of the Bears.
Because they were at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
The Bears ran 11 plays of total offense for the first quarter and a half of that game.
And then the Lions did what they did last year, and they're like, no, you're supposed to play all 4 quarters. Because it is still the NFL.
A couple players might have gone to the locker room and had some of that turducken.
I don't know, man. You ever had turducken?
No, I haven't, but I've always wanted to try turducken.
You should get one. Best thing to do, like those companies in Louisiana that do them best, you just got to mail order one, man.
Mail order a turducken?
Yeah. I've done it.
No,
we've had
Thanksgiving one year. That actually might
or Christmas. You can do it anytime, but holidays. But it's good, dude. It's good. Football today, 2 finals in the books. Boise has beaten Oregon State 34-18. Colorado's first shutout in 9 years. They beat Oklahoma State 52-0. Speaking of shutouts, Oklahoma State, y'all.
Bad.
0-9 in the Big 12. 3-9 overall.
They were picked to win the Big 12.
That's ugh.
They went over. I don't know if I can recall off the top of my head a team that was picked to win a power conference with the amount of players they had coming back. That's a good roster. Ollie Gordon won the Doak Walker Award last year for the best running back in college football, and he's been bad. And they went 0 in league play.
Is this a bad sign for Coach Gundy? Or, I mean,
it should be. This is a horrific coaching job, a horrific one. But he's won a lot there, enough to the point where I think they probably give him the benefit of the doubt. But
yeah, maybe not a whole lot more. I don't know. Hour 2 of the postgame show coming up. Pete Iacobelli talking more Carolina Clips, and y'all keep it here. I also tell you about our good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Man, Ben and Matt and Andrew, terrific hosts, the whole staff on Tuesday for Elijah and me. We had a great time over there. You've heard some of the spots about that big Gravely, like 52-inch zero-turn stand-behind mower. I'm telling you, it feels like you're on something out of Star Wars while you're cutting the grass.
Kind of looks that way, too. You just hover.
It does. Awesome. And, you can rent this thing. So if you want to just check it out, even if you want to just use it once and go like, all right, I've done that. You may not need it all the time at your house, but if you're in the business, see what I'm doing here? They got some great specials on a lot of these things right now. 10% off Toro push mowers, the $3,000 to $5,000 range models that are saving you about $500. Again, the Gravely Zero Turns, some as low as $5,800 with the commercial stand-on unit. Just stop by Cato's and see what they got for you. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, Cato'sPowerEquipment.com.
Yeah, Jared Brown didn't play against Wofford. He'll be fine for Saturday. Some of the guys that left the game defensively or got banged up, they're fine. Bandravius Jacobs, he won't play Saturday. That hamstring injury won't allow him to be able to go on Saturday. And then the other position's a tight end position, and we'll see where we are this weekend.
Shane Beamer has fans a little nervous. Maybe he's being a little coy. Maybe there's reasons for all of it. Welcome back into the postgame show, hour number 2, coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Again, a happy Thanksgiving week to all. Hope it went well for you. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli of the Associated Press going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. Pete has covered both these teams this season, so he'll have a lot to tell us on the Carolina-Clemson game tomorrow and what he is looking at. Our buddy Michael Haney going to stop by a little bit later on, too. And in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll play this week's edition of the Wild Card Showdown. I had somebody ask me the other day, speaking of the Showdown, and I'll probably mention this again, why don't y'all ever do the Carolina-Clemson game? Michael and I used to. Many years ago, we would put Carolina and Clemson games on there. Now, predominantly, we are a Gamecock-heavy audience. And honestly, it got to a point where sometimes it was just absurd. like Clemson, let's just say, I'm just going to throw it, like Clemson would be like a 22, 23, 24-point favorite over Duke. Duke. Then Clemson wins by 30-something. And it'd be just like Carolina fans just pulling for the, and then like Carolina, sometimes you might be overmatched. Oh, Carolina. I was like, no, not this time. So we just decided, not for any reason other than, we talk a lot about that anyway. So let's just do other games. So if you ever wondered why on our picks contest we don't do Carolina-Clemson, that's why. But we will have lots of rivalry games or other games this week to discuss. But it is certainly a big one tomorrow. The Gamecocks 3-point underdogs. The computer gives Carolina a little better than 43% chance to win this game. So there's that at the same time. And so there's the ammunition Shane can use. Hey, nobody, they think you're not good enough. And then Dabo can use, all these people are picking South Carolina to beat us because they are.
Which might show you, I guess, the absurdity of the nobody believes in us factor.
Yeah. Well, if you
let's
could
be
both
honest
use
with
it.
each other. I mean, everybody believes in both of you.
Yes.
So you know what? The motivation is getting to the college football playoff.
That's
How
right.
about that?
That's right.
You'd use that one pretty well.
Let's go to cut 4 on today's list, please, Mr. Campbell. This is Shane Beamer from Carolina Calls on making sure that his team keeps it real between the ears.
Great question, Dan. You're exactly right. We talk about it a lot. We talked about it this morning in our team meeting. So Tuesday mornings is kind of the start of the week for us as far as preparation on the next opponent. And we talked about that this morning. One of the first things was, the poise and the discipline and the composure that we need to play with on Saturday, that it will be an emotional game and play really well between the whistles, not getting pre-snap penalties and then getting penalties after the play as well for late hits or unsportsmanlike conducts or whatever it might be. So it's easier said than done in a game like this because of the emotion, but the team that dislikes the other team the most is not necessarily going to win the game. They don't like us, we don't like them. I get it. That's a rivalry game. But the thing for us is going to be the team that plays really, really well, and that goes back to being composed and disciplined. That's where it all starts.
So much of that lack of composure at times was problematic for South Carolina early in the season. We keep kind of going back to that line of demarcation this year in Tuscaloosa, where after the very disappointing performance against Mississippi, you went to Tuscaloosa, you played a pretty good football game, you didn't win that football game, you didn't play poorly, you just didn't do enough to win. But since then, you haven't lost. And so many of the things that were affecting them early. You look at man downfield, false starts, stuff like that you just, it's like, come on, man.
A lot of procedural stuff.
Yeah, just stuff that you practice and you're not supposed to do, and yet in games you lost yourselves. And look, that's human nature. I get it. When the lights are on, you hear all those kind of things all the time. But South Carolina's done, in my opinion, a very good job the last month and a half of eliminating the majority of those. They'll never all go away. You'd like them to, but they won't. But, how you minimize it or, at least try to do it in a place where it won't beat you. Like yesterday, again, I keep coming back to this game, but yesterday the Bears got like 60-something yards on their final drive, but Elijah, they also got penalized like 40 yards. They basically went like 100 yards.
Oh, they had a play that would have gotten them into not just a field goal range, but like chip shot field goal range.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a no-brainer. The only way they're missing it is if it gets blocked field goal range.
And they just just things like that. And again, even at the highest level, just because the Bears are a bad team, these are all professional football players. Anyway, you got to minimize those kind of things. And I think South Carolina has done a good job of it. But if I'm Clemson, like any other opponent, I'm going to find ways to put Carolina in positions where they get uncomfortable, where they get a little antsy. And like, dadgummit, that kind of thing. So it's still there for you. We've talked a lot, too, about the schedules, and make of that what you will. I do think it matters. To what degree, I'm not sure. I think a lot of people used to get on Clemson for having a weaker schedule, and yet when Clemson got into postseason play, they did well in a lot of seasons, obviously. So, where is that line? Not really sure, but Coach Dowell Loggins, Gamecock OC, was asked about it from a Carolina perspective on how a difficult schedule, top 15 schedule strength in the country, has helped his squad.
Yeah, I think competition makes you better. But this is really a man-on-man race. Like, you're trying to be the best version of yourself. And if we recruited the right type kids, which I feel like we have, and if they've got the right makeup and they practice the right way, then and you've got good coaching, you will get better. And playing in this conference, like, everyone knows what they sign up for. Everybody thinks they want to be in the SEC until you get a taste of it. And it's like the NFL that way. Coach Shula and I always joke about it because we spent our whole careers in the NFL, and there are no off games in the SEC. Everyone's good. Like, every week it's like, geez, man, these guys are good. You look at the defensive rankings, like, geez, these guys are in the top 30 in the country. Like, every week it feels that way, and it's like, hey, when do we get an off week? And you just don't in this conference. Like, and Clemson has an SEC type defense. They've been really good for a really long time. They've recruited defensive linemen really well for a really long time, and they're built like that. So a ton of credit to those guys. And I think the level of competition, in the Bible it says iron sharpens iron, and that's what happens as one man sharpens another, and it's true with football as well. Like, the better competition you face, like, you rise to the level of competition, and you will get better because you face great players week in, week out in this conference.
I believe everything he said. I do believe that. That's what I think gives a lot of people around the country the notion that South Carolina comes into this one not just having faced what is most likely a more difficult schedule, but that they've been winning those football games.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a more difficult schedule. Yeah. Definitely a lot more challenges, and I don't think that's all necessarily Clemson's fault. I mean, when you get into conferences that have 18 teams or whatever it is, it's whatever the draw that you get is. It's not Clemson's fault that North Carolina State wasn't very good this year. It's not their fault Stanford wasn't any good this year. They've played who's on their schedule, and they beat a lot of those teams that's on their schedule. I do think that, a lot of what turned into South Carolina's development throughout the year was a result of maybe getting your butt kicked by an Ole Miss team who you learned a lesson like, hey, if you don't have it 100%, you will get waxed in this league. If you are off for even a quarter or you don't execute even one play call, you can get your butt kicked in this league by anyone. And it was a very valuable lesson to learn. And as you've seen also in the SEC too, if you look ahead, you will get beat by anybody. Alabama learned that against Vanderbilt. Ole Miss learned that against Florida. They were looking ahead to the college football playoff, and they played a Florida team they should have beaten and drooled on themselves for the last 2.5 quarters of that game, and by shooting themselves in the foot with some just ridiculous miscues. I think that helps. That ultimately helps to get when you get to the point of November where you still have these massive games that you need to win, A&M, Missouri, Vanderbilt, that you're able to do so and take care of business in the manner that you've prepared for the entire season. That definitely gives them a little bit of an edge.
One more here. Let's go to cut number 19, please, sir. This is Gamecock DC, Clayton White, and we talked with Langston Moore last hour about the combination, really all the guys up front, but certainly Kyle Kennard, Dylan Stewart having phenomenal seasons. Clayton was asked about those guys chasing records and what that might mean for their performance.
It's been one of those things. It's been a little bit of both, but for the most part, our guys you may hear them talking about it or just wondering, what would that be like? But I think they're really focusing on trying to make sure that we do a good job against their O-line and keeping Cade in the pocket, making sure he doesn't get outside the pocket. He's very dangerous whenever he's moving around and making plays. And, it's kind of like our quarterback that we've seen. He broke some sacks and scrambled and throw 45-yard passes down the field. So we understand what we're facing. So, obviously you want to continue the production that we have and keep it going and just make sure we're playing smart football and understand who we're facing is how you get things done.
Yeah,
understanding your opponent.
Sorry, Coach.
That's a false start.
Yeah,
Jay Phillips, 5 yards.
Sorry about that.
Still first down.
Well, when the pause was there, I was ready to go. My bad. We talk about trading card stats a lot, and then we talk about some of the PFF numbers. These guys have both. And if you can get bigger trading card stats, that's typically a positive.
Yeah, it pops out on the page. And if you don't have them, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not productive,
right,
or at least you're not having a huge impact, right? Like with cornerbacks specifically, like if a cornerback does not have a lot of interceptions, does that mean they're getting torched or they're not doing anything? It means, and in the case of someone like Darrelle Revis, it was because he shut down half of a side of a field in football, right? I mean, no one was throwing his direction.
J.C. Horn here a few years ago.
J.C. Horn, no one was throwing his way,
right,
at all. And so the impact of that is that an offense basically has half the field to work with, because wherever J.C. Horn was, you were not throwing the ball in that direction. So it very much so limits what you can do. But both these dudes, with Kennard and Stewart, they're productive, and you can see that they win a lot on the pass rush. Their pass rush win rates are really high. They get a whole lot of hurry, so even if they don't get to the quarterback, they are pressuring the quarterback. If they don't get them down for a sack, at least, they're at least getting to them for legitimate pressures, and that can change how an offense functions, especially when so much of offense in football is timing and precision.
We'll keep talking Carolina Clemson. Come back on the other side. Our good friend Pete Iacobelli on the beat for the AP. He's seen both these teams in person so far this season. What is Pete looking for tomorrow at Death Valley? That and more when the postgame show returns. Palmetto Propane, a family-owned business delivering propane to homes and businesses across South Carolina for more than 60 years. Professional installation, fantastic service, premium gas logs, outdoor fire features. They can really help you and your family stay comfortable, make it look really nice as well, especially this time of year where you want to gather the family and friends around the fireplace or wait for the big guy to come down, in like a month or so. Palmetto Propane is ready to help you upgrade your fireplace, whether it's propane or natural gas. Premium gas logs, complete installation and service. Check out the Palmetto Propane Hearth and Patio home store showrooms and see and feel the area's finest gas logs, fire features, grills, accessories, and so much more. Visit palmettopropane.com to connect with them or go online and find that location near you. I'll tell you, they're in Aiken, West Columbia, Batesburg, Lexington, and Augusta. Palmetto Propane. Welcome back in. Postgame show continues on this Friday afternoon. Happy holidays to all. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Michael Haney stopping by in a bit, about an hour from now, a little over an hour. We'll play the Wild Card Showdown. More sound from Coach Beamer, Coach Loggins, Coach White. And right now, talking more Carolina Clemson, we welcome back on our very good friend Pete Iacobelli of the Associated Press. How was your Thanksgiving, sir? Have you had multiple naps after the big meals?
Yes, plenty of naps, plenty of downtime there. But now, it's hard to stay asleep. You just get more and more excited for what we're going to see tomorrow.
You're like me, and I'll try to say that we're not old, but we've been around this thing a while now, Pete, you and me, when it comes to...
you can say I'm old. I have no problem with that.
Well, I am too, then. This is only the 7th time these two schools, Carolina and Clemson, have played when each is ranked. And Carolina's 5-1 in those. The difference is now there's a college football playoff. And while the hopes for both are very, very slim, and you would need help from others, might that make this the biggest Carolina-Clemson game ever?
I think that's a good call. If you want to think that, I think there are a lot of points at play here. The national championship has been a factor in these games before. I mean, if South Carolina had upset Clemson in 2016, a couple weeks after they lost to Pitt at home on that field goal game, there's no way they win a national title that year. They would not probably have been part of the 4. 18, the same thing. 2 years ago, that win, South Carolina's win at Clemson, probably kept the Tigers out of the Final Four that year. There's no question about that. But if you want to say here are two teams that have outside chances to play for a national title, facing off together, I don't know that we've seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least, in terms of college football playoff implications for both teams, probably the biggest. But one thing that, when looking at this matchup, the one thing I look at where Carolina has a big advantage is just the pair of edge rushers with Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, how good they have been all season long. And then, of course, it was reported this week, I think Dabo said it on his coach's show, that Trent Howard was injured and he's out. So Clemson's offensive line getting a little bit thinner. How much of an impact do you think that's going to have in a game like this?
Well, I think it's going to have a tremendous impact. I mean, Clemson's offensive line is one of those spots where, unfortunately, they have been hit hard by injuries at the same time, at the worst time of the year, And so right now that kind of gives Kennard, who's faced, I believe he's faced Clemson before when he was at Georgia Tech, and Stewart, who's probably spent had all season to hear about this rivalry. They're going to be fired up. Excuse me. They are going to be super fired up. Now, Cade Klubnik is not easy to get down. A guy who was much easier to get down a year ago has really shown ability to escape, like Lenora Sellers has, and make some plays even when you think you've got him in his grasp. So if they can get through, it's not going to be the easiest thing to get him down. But because the injuries, I mean, Clemson does expect to get maybe Tristan Lee back and have some stability there. Marcus Tate is trending well to come back as well. So, I mean, maybe there'll be some more stability, but we don't know how effective they're going to be coming off injuries.
Talking to Pete Iacobelli of the AP, Carolina Clemson tomorrow, noon kickoff from Memorial Stadium. Our coverage here on the network will begin at 7 o'clock, so lots of coverage for you all day long. Pete, speaking of injuries, South Carolina could be dealing with a big one, too. My co-host, Mr. Campbell, has called Josh Simon the easy button for Lenora Sellers, and certainly as Carolina's leading receiver, he has had one heck of a year. Shane not wanting to go anywhere near discussing what his availability looks like, and you don't have to out of conference. What are you hearing about Josh's availability tomorrow?
I'm hearing it is a game time decision, but knowing, talking to Josh Simon a little bit, he seems like the kind of guy where even if he's trending above 50%, 60%, he's going to want to be in there. I can't imagine him not being out there to play, just because he is such a gamer. He is such a guy who's so focused on the team and what, and how to bring success to them. And he's just been playing at a very high level. I mean, I think even him out there in a decoy role or something is enough of a deterrent for some of Clemson. Clemson's going to have to pay attention to him. No question about it. Whether he's 100%, whether he's 80%, 75%, if he's out there, they're going to have to pay attention to it.
Certainly. And then, on the other side of the ball, Clemson, their offense, pretty good running the ball this year. I think they pick up almost 200 yards a game. If there's anything that the South Carolina defense might have shown a weakness for, it's for a pretty strong rushing attack. Missouri kind of maybe gave a little bit of a blueprint with how they ran a lot of that outside zone and were able to really move the ball on the ground for large chunks of that game. Are you expecting to kind of see maybe a little bit of Clemson looking at that film and applying that type of strategy and not trying to sit back in the pocket 20-plus times a game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, last week against Citadel, I think Phil Maffa ran 3 times. They got him over 1,000 yards for the season, and then he came to the bench, which is why Jay Haynes was in there and had such a big day. I think they are going to feed Maffa very often, because even if you stop him once, twice, 3 times, the 4th time he might be able to slip through and, break off an 18-yard or a 30-yarder or something like that. He's going to wear you down, especially if Clemson's offensive line can hold together a little bit and maybe keep Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard from doing what they've done much of the year.
Pete, I'll ask you a question that I posed to Elijah at the top of the show. The Gamecocks come into this one, obviously, as an underdog on the betting line, an underdog, if you will, in terms of computer projections, and yet the national punditry all looks at South Carolina and says they're playing better football, and I expect them to win. So as somebody who covers these teams, and you cover them both, what does that tell you about what tomorrow could look like?
Well, it certainly says that South Carolina has had a super surprising season. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When, in August, I didn't think they were going to win at Kentucky. I was certain, they couldn't win at Oklahoma. I was certain they were going to be beaten by Texas A&M. I was certain they were going to lose to Missouri like they've done so many times in the past. And none of that took place because this team, has found a gear, a level, an ability to compete that maybe wasn't there at times last year. So, the point spread, I think it's 2.5, 3 points or something like that. I think that's a home field kind of thing. That's really a toss-up game. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. I just I can't imagine that. I can't really pick one side or the other, because as well as South Carolina has played, Clemson has also played pretty well to win in tough places like Virginia Tech and Pitt.
And then when it really comes down to it, Pete, I was breaking this thing down on Wednesday in preparation for the show, and I noticed Clemson has 6 blocked field goals this year. And part of me has to think, when you're playing against a Shane Beamer coach team, if there's any coach in America that can find a special teams weakness that you have, it might be him. And so going into this game, how much do you think that's going to be able to play a factor in maybe exploiting some of the issues that Clemson's had on that side of the ball? It
could. I think they have 8 block kicks this year, and Dabo says that kind of leads the world in blocked in getting kicks blocked. So it's been a concern. Dabo has said it is an alignment. It's more an alignment process than anything else. I don't know what the process is, but I mean, if you get a kick blocked, those are points off the board that you could use in a game like this, which, I would imagine, I don't think it's going to be a blowout in any way, shape, or form. I think this is going to be a tight game, and we're going to go to the fourth quarter not knowing the outcome until the very end. So that could be a big factor. Shane Beamer has shown an affinity for being able to pull that kind of stuff off. So we'll just have to see if Clemson can get itself together tomorrow in special teams.
Pete, appreciate you as always, man. Safe travels up. We'll talk to you here real soon. Should be a fun one.
You know it. Thanks, guys.
You bet. That's our buddy Pete Iacobelli
Bye-bye.
on the beat for the Associated Press. We'll come back with some updates. The Egg Bowl is nearing the end of the first quarter. Get you caught up on that and more sound from Gamecock coaches and some of the implications. Elijah has things that he's going to throw at me for my day off that he believes are big factors in this game. But I told him to keep them close to the vest.
I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, and you're lucky that this glass is in between us, buddy.
All right, I get like a Captain America shield if I need it.
Deflecting stuff off.
Something
It's always
like
getting
that.
violent in the studio.
Right. Yeah, and Michael Haney's going to drop by in a bit, too. Lots more to do. We're halfway through this Football Friday edition of the Postgame Show. Let me tell you about our good friends at the Joint Chiropractic Centers. You waking up of late bothered by some back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, any kind of joint pain. Well, it might be time for you to go see our friends at the Joint. If you've never been to a chiropractic center, listen, for just $29, you get an initial visit that includes a consultation where you can ask some questions about what's up. You get that exam, you get a chiropractic adjustment, and you never need an appointment. You can be in and out quickly. You don't have to miss lunch. You don't have to miss time at work. Monday through Friday, 10 to 7, Saturdays, 10 to 4. No issues with insurance either. You just show up. You do what you need to get done. You're out of there. Local owners Janet and Bob Keene, been in Columbia for a long time, very involved in the local community and very involved with their patients. They just want you to feel better. Harbison, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch in the Northeast, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington, online, thejoint.com. Remember, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at The Joint.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with thankfully no accidents on this Black Friday to get to you that are might causing issues on the roadways. We do have some long-term road construction that might slow you down a little bit in the later hours this afternoon, like on 20 between exit 64 and 65, and on 26 between Bush River Road and exit 108A and Old Sandy Run Road near exit 125.
"25 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back in. Post-game show rolling on from the Herndon Chevy Studios. He's Elijah Campbell. It's true because I'm pointing at him.
Allegedly. It's all very alleged.
Yeah. I'm Jay Phillips, and we thank our good friend Pete Iacobelli for hanging out with us for a little bit, talking some Carolina Clemson. Could be the biggest game in the history of the rivalry, depending on your point of view. I'm not here to say it is or is not.
I'll say here's the safe title for it. It is the biggest game for both teams in the college football playoff era.
Boom. All right.
How's that for semantics?
You can leave if you want. I don't know if you got anything else to say at this point.
I don't. I think that might be the best
That's
we get
it.
out of me
Mic
today.
drop. Mic drop.
It's only downhill from here.
And it's always a pleasure. At least that's what I tell him to his face, so his mother feels good, to welcome into the studio our good friend Michael Haney, who, again, he and I did a couple thousand plus shows together.
Did a few.
Yeah.
Did a few.
And then you
yeah,
left.
that's the best way to do it, Elijah. You maximize the moment, you drop out, and you're like, you're on your own, buddy.
This is me cashing out, essentially.
That's it.
This is me leaving.
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah?
Good, man. I can't complain, man. Life is good. Thanksgiving was good.
What did Mama Haney make that was the best yesterday?
We did a combined Thanksgiving with extended family up in Greer yesterday. So my oldest nephew was married this summer.
So you went to the upstate yesterday.
We went, yeah.
And then back down here today, and then back because you're going to the game
for a good reason. I'm back today, which we'll talk about here shortly.
Okay.
And then yes, as soon as I'm done with my things tonight,
the gig,
I will be driving to the upstate and heading to the game tomorrow. So. Yeah.
When's the last time you've been to a game in that facility?
2012. I've already broken this down. I'm like, all right, how many times have I been to a Carolina Clemson game in Clemson? And 6 is the number.
I guess 2012. Brent and I would have been across the way at the old studio. Because that was a road game.
The 2012 game was one.
It was a road game. Way to go, Gene.
Yeah, nice.
Well done.
That was where the TV rights deals. This is all pre-SEC Network and all the tape delay things. And I remember that there was a moment where it was Derek Scott and Ryan Brewer were doing the tape delay, and I was the spotter for Derek and Ryan during the Dylan Thompson
up on the roof.
Yeah. Well, no, we were we were in the middle.
Were you okay?
Yeah, no, we were in the middle area for that particular broadcast.
Was that you?
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you.
That wasn't me. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, that one sticks out vividly.
Yeah.
I mean, they all do. Honestly, I mean, Carolina Clemson games are for one way or the other. Fairly memorable, at least in my circumstance, the ones that I've been to up there. So at least the first one that I know that I went to, I wasn't here, but it was 92. It was Tanny Hill's freshman year, so I got to witness
the rain game.
Yeah, I got to witness that happen in person. Missed 94, 96. I went up in 98 with my dad. We sat in the upper deck. We're like, both teams are terrible this year. The odds of winning are pretty good. 1-9 versus 2-8.
Right.
So for the opposite side of what we've got this year, two teams in the college football playoff era. At least we know that it's a possible play-in, but it's definitely an eliminator for whoever loses. And then I went. I was in college. I went to Carolina. 2000. I was there. I lost my gig writing for the student paper, the Gamecock, because I did not file my story afterwards because I was so incensed at Rod Gardner that I did not even fulfill my duties. I said, "To hell with this! I'm not writing about this damn game." And I had to learn real quick. If you're going to be a professional in this business, you gotta put aside the loyalties, man.
It's hard. It's hard sometimes. That's the only game, Michael. That we were talking about that with Langston, and we try not to bring it up too much. This is again tomorrow will be the 7th time that these two schools have played as when each of them is ranked. South Carolina is 5-1 in those.
The one
games.
loss is that game.
Is that one?
Yeah. Trust me, I know.
Yeah. So
all Gamecock fans know, especially in Rod Gardner's, all of his interviews after in the years afterwards and being coy and then finally being like, yeah, I mean,
it is. Dude, I told Elijah,
it doesn't matter now. Like you can't change it.
No, but a little forearm shiver is one thing when you.
Yeah.
When you two hand, you can't, but anyway.
But that's the.
But we're not here to raise that.
No, but that's the thing. Like, who is going to etch their name either, famously or infamously in this series tomorrow? Right. Because it's going to be somebody. And I just think it's going to be interesting to find out which side that falls on.
Yeah, I mean, that's with both teams being so good, too. I mean, something's going to happen, whether even if it's a blowout, it's going to be one of those things that's going to be really memorable just because of the circumstances coming up into it. But I'm curious to what you have right now with, like, a confidence level. You've watched these teams play all year as a lifer and seeing how well this Carolina team has played. Some that I have talked to are like, oh, this is the reason, like, why they'll lose. It's because now everybody's hopes are up. Everybody's feeling good. And from a football standpoint, it makes sense for Carolina to win this game, but at the same time, I don't know where you're leaning on this one.
Well, I mean, I'm leaning towards South Carolina, and I've been hesitant myself, but I've even caught it because I've talked to a lot of Gamecock fans, and this is the discussion that I've had. There's trauma. If you're a Gamecock fan, you got a lot of built-up trauma over the years for all kinds of different reasons.
Generational.
Absolutely, it's there. And even, perhaps. But even for me, like I've got a nice group chat going with my college buddies, and I'm always very pragmatic about things. I still have a little bit of this in me, when it comes to breaking down games. But last year, going into the Florida game, I was incredibly confident. We know how that game ended very frustratingly. This year, I was fairly confident after watching the way Ole Miss played at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then South Carolina.
Kentucky beat him in Oxford even, yeah.
So losing in Oxford to a Kentucky team that South Carolina had dismantled in Lexington themselves, coming off of a bye week traditionally, the time that Shane Beamer coached teams have always played well, and for whatever the reasons are, which we're not going to rehash now because I know you guys have already done all that, they lost. So the times that I've been the most confident is when South Carolina has not shown up. But I do think going into this game, it's fair if you're a Gamecock fan, be excited about it. Your team has had a season. I heard your conversation with Pete. Nobody was expecting this. Nobody. If you go and beat Clemson to finish 9-3, what a cherry on top of the sundae. I mean, the playoff stuff, it's fun fodder. It's fun to be in the conversation, to even say that you have a chance, like whatever percentage that may be.
At least your resume will be on their table.
Right, right. I mean, that's all well and good, but the focus is on the rivalry game. And this team, I've listened to what you guys have said all the way up here. I don't want to repeat too much, but South Carolina has been playing very good football the second half of the season. They've learned, they've grown, and there's something to be said for being tested. They don't give a damn about going to Death Valley at noon. They've been to Tuscaloosa. They've been to Oklahoma this year. Vandy, in all of its own weirdness, is a tough road game to go play in.
Going to Lexington was at the time at least, mentally was a tough test.
I just don't think the normal things of like, oh, well, they're playing at Clemson. Like, I don't think that matters as much as people want to think that it does. And I think that this team has at least, if the team that shows up the last 5 or 6 weeks plays tomorrow, I think that they do win. And while it might not be a blowout, I think that South Carolina can win going away in such a way that reminds you maybe of the A&M game, where it's a nip and tuck game at half, and then suddenly the doors open. I just think South Carolina's got a really, really great chance to win this game tomorrow, and Gamecock fans should be excited for that and not be aw shucks, and man, be proud of your team. Be ready to go and yell and scream if you're going to the game.
He's our good friend Michael Haney, hanging out with us here for a few minutes before he heads over to a gig across the river. We'll tell you about that in a second. Egg Bowl is underway. State early, up 14-10 on Ole Miss.
Speaking of anything can happen in rivalry games, right?
There's a long way to go in this. They just started the second quarter, but the Bulldogs right now hanging tough against the Rebels. We'll keep you updated on that one throughout the course of the afternoon. Again, Elijah will throw some things our way in terms of some of the particulars he's looking at for this ball game. Wild Card Showdown still to come as well. It's the Football Friday postgame show. 12 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Let me tell you, the craft beer card is back. Brand new one, only $59. You're saving around $300 on some great craft beers all across the Midlands. It is a fantastic holiday gift for you to give to someone and for you to give to yourself. Or
Like me.
Or Elijah. Or Michael.
One.
Michael will be home again for the holiday. He can use it when he's back. He's here a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They give you plenty of time to use it.
Go to Sweet Deals at 1075thegame.com
Wheels.
and grab as many as you'd like until they run out. You can buy them all as far as I'm concerned.
I know they're flying off shelves in here. I don't know how many we have left.
You didn't abscond with any, did you?
I want to plead the fifth.
All right.
On that.
Smart. You're learning your way through this business. I'll tell you that
I'm
much.
not going to incriminate myself today.
It is always a pleasure to have our good friend Michael Haney here. Again, obviously, many of you that are longtime listeners to the station know that he was with us for many, many years, now part of the music biz up in Nashville, Tennessee, where Elijah came from. Y'all pass each other in the night. Actually, that's not true because Elijah's been here 2 years.
It's like a late trade. I was the player to be named late.
Like, all right, well, this is working out, though. It's good.
Yeah, it is.
It's good.
It's going, yeah. I am the lucky recipient of both of your talents. All right. Elijah was kind enough to allow me to be with family on Wednesday, so I wasn't here, but he has stats and things to chew on for Carolina Clemson. So I said for him to throw some things at me that I have not yet heard.
Yes, and one of those things we talked about a lot, will Clemson take the Missouri blueprint of a lot of stretch runs, a lot of outside zone runs, because that's where any team against Carolina this year has had the most success on the ground. So I got curious and I looked at kind of where Phil Maffa's running splits are, if that's something that they even do frequently. Is that something that's a big part of their offense? Most of his runs this year come off the left edge, right edge, middle left, and middle right inside the tackles. He only picks up about 3 yards off both edges. So that's really not where his success comes from. But off of, I believe, is the middle left, so in between the left guard and left tackle, he picks up almost 10 yards a carry. Do we see them still trying to line up against South Carolina and run that straight up the middle, run between the tackles, which is what Phil Moff has been a lot more successful at this year? Or do you think Garrett Riley and Dabo have watched that Missouri film and said, this is our blueprint to scoring on this defense?
I think you got to find a way first to do what you do. But if you quickly see that it's not there and you've worked on the misdirection, if you will, the change of pace, I think you got to, I think they got to take a lot from the Missouri game.
Yeah, well, the rule of thumb, obviously, is anytime you have an aggressive defensive front, the best way to negate that is to start, moving east-west, try to slow them down a little bit on that, maybe even pop some draw plays here or there if you can. But, look, Dabo is going to do Dabo. He's going to run the Clemson offense, right? So I think absolutely, Jay, they're going to do what they do. It's going to be, we're playing at home. We have our crowd behind us. We are Clemson. We're going to run our offense. And then, obviously, we'll see where the chips fall at that point and see if they're having any success with it. But certainly, I expect things. I expect some trickery. I expected a few different things. And, I always remember 2008 because I think one of those trick plays was a James Davis to C.J. Spiller, ran a halfback pass that kind of broke the game open there, and I think that one play might have single-handedly landed Dabo the job back in 08.
That's fair.
So I expect him to have some tricks up his sleeve. Not that South Carolina won't, but I certainly expect Dabo and Riley to have something cooked up playing at home.
Before we get you out of here, because we're up against it and you need to go, you got a big gig going on tonight?
Yes, a really, really great thing. My good buddy Drew Dixon, who is from
Drew.
Yeah, Drew is from Columbia, has been up in Nashville a little bit longer than me, 13 years, but he was part of Nashville Nights this summer and kind of watched some things that we had going on there and wanted to that night already started laying the tracks to do what we're going to be doing tonight for Electric Minds, the Electric Minds Foundation to benefit pediatric epilepsy. The foundation was started by Drew and Dr. Daniel Snellgrove. So a lot of events around Electric Minds Foundation, music events, building on that, trying to build up the ultimate goal is to create some programs that bring children with pediatric epilepsy to bring them into the arts. So that's what we're doing tonight, and playing some songs. I'm doing a writers round with Shelby Ray and Hope Overlook from 6 to 7. Then Drew's going to play with a full band, and our buddy John Wesley Satterfield headlining the night with a full band show as well. So.
Across the river, right?
Yeah. Over at Steel Hands, Michael Haney Music. If you would like to follow along with what we're going to be doing tonight, Drew Dixon as well, John Wesley Satterfield. You can follow along all on there and see what we got going on.
Michael Haney Music on the Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
Right. That's what the kids use, right?
That's it for the music biz. Yeah, it's that and TikTok these days.
TikTok. I don't know much about it, but my kids show me stuff all the time.
I begrudgingly know about it. It's one of those things.
I get it. Everything else good?
Yeah. Can't complain. I do. I've got some new tunes that are going to be coming out early next year. I've already been in the studio recording those, so excited to share those with the masses when the time comes. But I'll always remember my first song that I ever did was Born to Crow.
That's right.
And of course, it was going to go back to the Gamecocks when I put out my first song, but excited to put out some new stuff coming out next year. So if you follow along today, it's not just for what's going on tonight. You can see what all I'll have going on moving into the new year.
Michael Haney Music on Instagram over there tonight. Safe travels up there tomorrow. Best to the family. Your mom still proud of you?
Yeah.
That's good. Dad, not so much. Yeah. Great people. Great people. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Have fun.
Elijah, man. Good to see you, buddy.
Talk to you soon. Hour 3 of the postgame show coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with zero. That's right. 0 accidents on the roadways that are causing issues, at least none that have been reported to us. But we do have some long-term road construction that might be causing you some travel delays, slight ones, here in the Midlands, starting with one on 20 between exit 64 and 65, and on 26 between exit 108A and exit 125, and on I-126 between Hugie Street and I-26. But other than that, no accidents to report as of now.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Friday, a Football Friday edition of the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Also, our final hour alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips, and thanks as always to our good friend Michael Haney. It is always fantastic to get to see him in person. Carolina Clemson tomorrow at noon. The Gamecocks actually the line has moved this afternoon back down to 2.5. So the Gamecocks are still underdogs, whatever that may be worth to you. But a 2.5-point spread as we speak. 49.5 is the over-under, but that may not matter to a lot of folks. Although, I will say, Michael and I were just talking about this, and he's right. Our good, dear friend Tommy Moody used to say, listen, you can talk about, and, Tommy for years did his extra point prognostication sheet, and basically, as a historian of it, said, when you look at it, the better team usually wins this game, period, which is something that maybe holds true by and large all the time. Is South Carolina the better football team? The pundits say South Carolina's going to win. Vegas says Clemson's the favorite. The computer says Clemson is going to win. So y'all can look at it however you see fit, whatever colors you may be wearing tomorrow. That being said, let's hear from Shane Beamer, who wants to continue a strong run in November, and that's what he's been doing so far as the Gamecock head coach.
I think it's, I go back to the way we practice. We work to get better throughout the season. We don't get to the season and stop doing good work and just do nothing but scout team work. I mean, our practices are competitive, and we do a lot of ones versus ones. Josiah Thompson blocking Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard, and Lenore Sellers having to throw against Nicky Manwari and DQ Smith and all those guys. So I think it certainly starts with the way we practice, and then I would say the way we train as far as the weight room and taking care of their bodies, nutrition-wise, training room-wise. It's a lot of it, and we always tell our players at the beginning of the season we want to be a team that gets better as the year goes, and we knew after the Kentucky game, I told them, look, we're 2-0, but it would be a shame if we're the same team in Week 12 that we are right now, and you've seen us change, whether it be personnel or whether it be wins and losses as far as how we've developed as the season's gone on.
Definitely not the same team. I was actually listening to a podcast today with Reese Davis and Pete Thamel, And Pete Thamel, basically national football reporter for ESPN, Pete was saying, man, if you told me the team that I was watching there, because he talked about tuning in kind of late in covering things like he does to the Carolina Old Dominion game. And he said, if you had told me that going into the final week of the regular season, that South Carolina team, was it going to even be in like the peripheral discussion of the playoff? I'd have said, you're nuts. I'm paraphrasing what Pete Thamel was saying, but that's how a lot of people feel. And yet the winner of this game may have an opportunity. Again, the chances are very slim. Clemson's odds are a little bit better, only in the sense that Clemson's just pulling for Syracuse to upset Miami tomorrow. Because if they do, Clemson gets into the ACC title game.
And then they get to play.
And then they get to play it. You know? Yeah, SMU is already there. Miami just has to win. But with Miami being upset a couple of weeks ago against Georgia Tech, that dented their chances. It just means that tomorrow's a must-win game for the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, Miami ain't getting to that thing at 10-2.
No, they're
participation.
No, it is. Tomorrow, I would say, absolutely fits the description of must-win game when it comes to the Hurricane. Meanwhile, let's get you some more from the Gamecocks. Coach Dowell Loggins, Gamecock offensive coordinator. A quick assessment of where his unit is going into tomorrow's matchup.
Group that's gotten better week to week. A team that's learned how to practice. A team that's got a bunch of young players that are ascending. They still have a lot of work to do. Still have a lot of work ahead of them this week. And so obviously the task at hand is the most important thing. And the reason we've been able to improve is because we have learned how to practice.
So pretty simple right there. Before we discuss that, let's do the exact same thing. Clayton White on the defense going into Death Valley tomorrow.
Yes, just describing our defense right now, just a bunch of guys who decided to come back and really play for each other. Easily last year some things could have changed, and a domino effect didn't start of guys leaving and stuff like that, led by Boogie, Tonka, TJ. Those guys have just decided to let's come back and have a great year. I think just being consistent and guys having fun this year. I can see guys, just having a lot of fun and at practice and at games, joking with coaches, picking on coaches. Just we found a way to keep this thing fun. So I think that's been the most important thing that I've seen, besides some of the things that are on the field for sure.
Yeah, the attitude matters tremendously. And again, this team is having fun. They've won 5 football games in a row. Again, you go back to the Alabama game, which was a good football game for South Carolina. You can play well and lose. Ask Missouri a couple of weeks ago at Williams-Brice, where most folks that observed Missouri said that was their best game of the year, and they lost. Because sometimes that's what happens in sports. But you have to like Carolina's chances tomorrow. You like Clemson's chance. There's a reason Clemson's favored tomorrow. Now, is it because they're at home? Some would say yes. Is it because they are Clemson and are accustomed to winning in this rivalry of late and just across the board? It could be part of it. Again, the way the computer looks at it, Elijah, relative to how Vegas looks at it, are often two different things. The good news is, or the bad, depending on your point of view, the bookies and the computer especially don't give a crap. They're just doing whatever they do. So they don't care if you win or lose.
They run on their own.
Yeah, they don't care. Although the computer might. The computers are starting to think these days, which is frightening.
Do you think the FBI gets its feelings hurt whenever it gets a game wrong?
I think it just gets mad, yeah. Starts throwing things. I just don't know what it throws.
It just starts beep, beep, boop, booping,
Yes.
like a little harder.
Skynet is already here. We'll have more from all three of those coaches, Coach Beamer, Coach Loggins, Coach White, coming up for you in our 5:15 segment. Before I give you the next story in terms of news, I'm going to give you basically why it happened. This was yesterday at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan.
Well, this is supposed to be a quarterback draw. They have a light box.
Clock is running with 15 seconds, and it's 3rd and 26. They have one timeout left.
This is like the light box. You could have gotten numbers, but just didn't.
You better hurry.
No.
Oh, this is disaster in the making here. You're going to have to do something when it comes down to this play. Incomplete, and the game is over.
Jim Nance, Tony Romo on the call. If you didn't watch yesterday, and maybe some of you were already having your nap after the big meal, I was not. I was watching that game because I was not paying that much attention. That was Detroit over Chicago yesterday, 23-20. That was the final seconds. Chicago was in easy field goal range and had a couple of penalties, and suddenly it was 3rd and long, but they had a timeout, and they didn't take it. And then Caleb Williams was just kind of, a word my grandma would have used with me many years ago, just dawdling around the line. And then finally kind of looked around and realized, I guess we need to do something here.
Oh, there's 6 seconds on the game clock.
Yeah, I don't know if he was – I mean, I don't know what was – it was – y'all, I've watched a term I used with Elijah the other day. I've watched 11 gajillion football games. And I'm not saying that's the worst I've ever seen or anything like that, right? But it was surreal. I was like, what the heck are y'all doing?
Perplexing.
Why are you not calling a timeout? I know you can't go spike the ball there, but you had a timeout. You cannot be in field goal range to tie a game in division play on the road and let the clock expire with a timeout left. You just can't do it. So how much of it was on Caleb Williams? Some. How much of it was on Coach Matt Eberflus? Some. Was the majority on the head coach? Sure. And today the Chicago Bears fired Matt Eberflus. That's why I wanted you to hear that again for those of you. And if you were watching yesterday, you feel just like I do and just like Elijah does. You're
confused.
Like, what the heck was that?
If you're Eberflus, just call the timeout and then lose your ever-loving mind on the sideline like every other coach. I mean, at some point, they lined up with 20 seconds left?
Yeah. And they had
it got down to 6.
Yeah. It was just I was like, what are they doing?
Guy knows he can't take the timeout home with him, right?
Yeah,
you can't take it home and tuck it into bed, after a long day. And
I thought I could exchange my timeout for 10 more seconds. No, man.
Don't work that way.
You gotta
use it.
You gotta use it. And that they didn't was just, again, you had time to get 10 yards and then call the time. Do something. But Caleb Williams was just standing there, just looking around like he had all day. Like, dude, this ain't the end of the second quarter. The first day. This is the end of the game, bro. You got to.
He's reading the defense like he was reading a novel. Buddy, you don't got that kind of time.
We hear sometimes about quarterbacks being game managers. And, again, you can put it all on the coach if you want to. But a lot of that's on Caleb Williams. And you know what? Today you kind of see the example of the fact that they fired the head coach instead of you, the player. If the coach doesn't want you to call a timeout, but you realize all hell has just broken loose and the best thing to do is settle down, just call your own timeout and let your coach yell at you later and say, Coach, I'm trying to help us, at least tie this game. I thought they were going to go win. And then it was odd. But Eberflus is done. Even yesterday, after the game, he basically he said, nah, that's kind of how we wanted it to look in terms of not calling a timeout and be able to get down there and do something. I'm like,
that cannot be how you wanted it to look. If that's how you wanted it to look, I think we need to look in the mirror here and see exactly what it is we value at the end of the game. I value winning or getting a shot to, tie it and send it to overtime.
By the way, he even, not only did he say in postgame that he was good with how it unfolded, at least in theory, but today, like a lot of coaches do, he had a post. They like y'all hear us talk about it. Like Shane Beamer has a post game on Sunday or Saturday after a game. Then he does a Sunday teleconference as well. It's the same thing in the NFL. So this morning, Matt Eberflus had his Friday morning Zoom call with reporters and such, and was even saying then, "No, it's all good." And yeah, I'm the head coach. I'm good. And then I guess they waited for the Zoom call to end. And they're like, hey, Matt, buddy.
About that.
Can you come down the hall real quick? So Thomas Brown, the former, he's coached at a lot of places. And, of course, played at Georgia, but has coached here at South Carolina. Was just named last month the interim offensive coordinator. Today was named the interim head coach. Good news for the Bears, even though they're kind of down a little bit. They get to play the Niners. I'm kind of joking when I say that, but the Niners are down a little bit. But
and the Niners get to play the Bills.
So
that Sunday night.
Anyway, that was the most drama in any football game yesterday. Pretty much.
That was fun.
Again, it was just surreal. College football today, the Boise State Broncos beat Oregon State 34-18. Ashton Jeanty gets to 2,288 yards in the regular season. And Colorado tossed its first shutout in college football since 2015. They beat Oklahoma State 52-0. Travis Hunter had a bunch of catches, a touchdown, had an interception on defense as well. Oklahoma State finished Big 12 play 0-9. And as Elijah reminded me, at their media days earlier this year, they were picked to win the Big 12 conference title. 0-9.
Yeah.
So Mike Gundy will get yelled at, but he's a man. He's now 50-something.
Yeah, he's no longer 40.
No, he's 50-something.
Because that was like 17 years ago.
It was a long time ago.
Like 2007, right?
I forget, but I remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, Coach, calm down. Calm down. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. We'll come back on the other side of the break with some more sound from Coach Beamer getting you ready for Carolina Clemson. And in about 15 minutes, we will be inviting two of you on board to play this week's edition of the Wild Card Showdown, one of our craft beer passports up for grabs. It's the Football Friday postgame show.
Yeah, get some injured guys healthy so we can be at our best on Saturday, and then for us just continue to handle the, I don't want to call it distractions, but it's a different week. It's Thanksgiving. Our guys aren't in class. So continue to handle the week the right way so we can be at our very best on Saturday to play really, really well as well. And appreciate you saying that. It's been an awesome year. It's not over yet. We still have a lot of work to still accomplish this season.
Shane Beaver from Carolina Calls, looking ahead to tomorrow's clash in Clemson. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Reminder, tomorrow morning, starting at 7, Carolina Game Day, 107.5 The Game here in Columbia, and then into network coverage, kickoff at noon, obviously. We'll have a watch party at O'Hara's tomorrow out in Lexington. Also tomorrow, they're playing early down in Fort Myers, 10:30 pregame, 11 o'clock tip on the AM, 1320 here in Columbia. Dawn Staley's Gamecocks taking on Purdue after their stomping of Iowa State yesterday that included a 32-0 run.
An evaporation of Iowa State.
Ooh.
That's how you get rid of them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to lose a game if you go on a 32-0 run unless you started the game down 37-0.
That's right. They'd find a way. I don't know. That was something. But they'll do that tomorrow for you. And then Gamecock men back at it on Monday?
I believe so.
Tuesday?
Let's see.
At Boston College? It's Monday or Tuesday?
That game will be.
I think it's Tuesday.
Pulling up the old.
I don't know.
Here.
Well, it's okay.
Tuesday, December 3rd.
Okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry.
I got scared for a little bit.
Well, I did too. I should probably have this written down somewhere, but it's just been all football today pretty much.
But hey, I'm always like 2 clicks away from the Carolina schedule on my laptop here.
I did text you after the game the other night, though. I mean, hey,
they won.
They won. They beat an ACC team. That's something.
Don't ask me how good that ACC team is.
Yeah, I get it. Let's get back into it. Speaking of ACC teams, Carolina goes to one tomorrow, take on the Clemson Tigers. And here is Shane Beamer, what he sees from Cade Klubnik and the Clemson offense.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. It all starts with the quarterback. He's a great player, great athlete, running back. Number 7, Maffa's a big back that can run. Offensive line's a veteran group. Tight ends are the guys we've played in the past. To me, the difference in last year and this year for them is the receiving core. They're healthier for one, and they've added 2 really talented freshmen on the outside. So you have Antonio Williams on the inside that primarily plays in the slot, and then you got the two true freshmen outside of him that are really good players, and they'll mix it up. They want to run the ball. They're averaging 200 yards rushing a game, so they want to run the football, and they have the ability to go fast tempo and mix it up as well. So we've got to be ready for that. There's no question about it. You watch the Louisville game, and I think they had something like 40 plays in the fourth quarter alone. Now, they were behind, and they were trying to come back, but they have the ability to go really, really fast and operate at a high level.
I'm going to be curious to see, and I know I've mentioned it a few times already this week, will Clemson want to take a page from Missouri and do things that they don't typically do on offense? If they can replicate some of what Missouri did, then I think Clemson has a greater opportunity, and they already have a great opportunity to win this game. It isn't like South Carolina is coming in here as I like to say sometimes, the 78 Steelers. But at the same time, Elijah, you and I have talked about this. If Clemson, holds steady to what they do and says, listen, this is what we do, and we're going to go do it, and you have to beat us doing what we do, I like South Carolina's opportunity there. I genuinely do. I like Maffa a lot. And that dude averages better than 5 a carry, right? I mean, he's
a machine.
I mean, he's the real deal. And Klubnik's gotten a whole lot better, but he's their second leading rusher. How much does that matter? I'm not sure. I mean, we've seen South Carolina make quarterbacks uncomfortable, and the best way, that we saw from Missouri, and Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz doesn't mind just saying, you know what, I'm not going to do what we do. He's okay with that, which makes him a good coach. He may be somebody we don't all like as football fans, but it's worked for him. He's not afraid to go, I'm just not going to do what we do, and we're going to go practice something else. I'm curious to see where that line is for Clemson tomorrow.
And how well that offensive line holds up. I mean, the injuries they've had to the offensive line and having to move some pieces around and places where they don't, necessarily fit. I think Walker Parks, who's, a perfect example of that. A guy played guard for them most of the season and then, forced to play some tackle against Pittsburgh and quite frankly got eaten up in a lot of that game. I mean, they're not 100% healthy on the offensive line. And when you're playing a team like South Carolina, you have to be on your P's and Q's on the offensive line, especially if you are planning to run the ball. And then, of course, Trent Howard out for the season, will not be playing in this game. So, look, they have other players that, were unhealthy coming into this game, that their health is going to be a pretty big factor as to whether or not they're going to be able to run the ball at all. What's that run game look like if, Tristan Lee can't play, right? Like that's a pretty big loss as well. If he can't come back and play with Trent Howard being out, with the way, Walker Park struggled to move into the tackle position for the Pittsburgh game, who knows what that thing looks like. And with Carolina's defense, then their defensive front specifically, that could be a disaster for them if that's not even 50% going into that game.
Let's stay with this theme here and get you some sound from Clayton White on just looking at the number of players that he believes Carolina will have to try and negate tomorrow.
Well, this is like my 12th time going against Clemson as a player. 4 games at NC State, 4 games here. Obviously, they've never lacked offensive production. So things that we see on tape is, obviously them, they have really good tight ends between Jake, OP Henry, and then they also have Sapp. They have really good tight ends. The tight end room is really good. The running backs between Maffa and 26 are really, really productive. They do a great job of spreading the ball around to their receivers. Zero, Antonio, then they got Bryant, the receiver. Then they also have number 1, TJ, the receiver from Tampa. So they have weapons all over the field. That's how it's always been, from Sammy Watkins to Mike Davis, to Mike Williams. It's just always been a bunch of guys that you have to deal with at Clemson, and this is just another one of those years when they're doing the same thing.
A lot of guys. And, again, can Klubnik do some of the things that Brady Cook did a couple of weeks ago? Will Maffa look like Noel did a couple of weeks ago? I like Maffa a lot. I think that what they do tomorrow, if they're successful, is predicated upon what he – and that's not a secret or anything like that. Yeah. But Klubnik's been playing some really good football.
Antonio Williams has really broken out at receiver now that he's been fully healthy. He wasn't really healthy for, 80% of last year.
That's fair.
And he's broken out as the true number 1 receiver on that team, and he's legitimately dangerous.
Not only is he their number 1, Elijah, but I looked at this, and again, I don't like to do a whole lot of math, but he has 58 catches. Wesco and Moore behind him have 52 combinedly involved in what they do. So finding a way to negate that will be a big part of the Carolina defense. All right, we'll have some final thoughts on the ball game in a bit, but right now we need 2 of you on board. It's time to play the Rivalry Week edition of the Wild Card Showdown. One of our great craft beer passports up for grabs, 803-404-6100. 803-404-6100. 2 of you. The showdown is next.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with 0 accidents, thankfully, to not have to report to you. But there might be some traffic backup later on in the night. Yeah, you like that? Good news. Good news all day. We haven't had one all day, knock on wood. But we do still have some long-term road construction that might be a little bit of an issue later on this afternoon, and that's going to be on I-126 between Hughes E Street and 26, on 26 between Bush River Road at exit 108A and Old Sandy Run Road at exit 125, and on 20 between exit 64 and 65. That's
It is Rivalry Week. We thank our friends at Columbia Craft for doing all they do for us all the time. Got a couple of cans of Little Nostalgia Goggles in my refrigerator right now. Might enjoy one after this program is done.
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
I still have a can of the famously hopped IPA.
Nice.
Sitting home right now.
Nice. Should go get some more at some point.
Gotta have to.
Yeah, there you go.
Always do.
All right, let's cue the band. It's time to play this week's edition of the Wild Card Showdown. We've got Frank, we've got Mark ready to play. Frank, happy Thanksgiving week. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Y'all too.
All right, man. And Mark, how are you, sir? Are you still nice and fat and happy after yesterday?
Yep. Happy Friday.
There you go. All right. We'll see what happens tomorrow as well. All right, guys. No Carolina Clemson on this one. Somebody asked me earlier. Well, you know, it's too many fans in that one, so we try to keep the objectivity here in the Wild Card Showdown. I mean, this is for real.
Big J journalism stuff.
That's right. This is big time stuff. So we got a lot of rivalry games and other important games. These are all college football games this week. No NFL. No NFL. All right, Frank, we're going to start with you. Perhaps the most important game of the week. Texas is at Texas A&M. The winner will be in the SEC title game against Georgia. Longhorns favored by 5.5 on the road, Frank. Who you like?
A&M.
A&M. That was like zero hesitation. I love it, Frank. Mark, same game?
I'm going to take Texas.
Texas to cover the spread on the road. Elijah Campbell.
I'll take A&M to win outright. I think this is going to be a chaotic Saturday.
I have been so torn on this one. I think I'm going to give me A&M and the points at home. I think Texas wins this game, but maybe by 2 or 3. So I'm going to take the points at home. I think Texas is going to win the game. Notre Dame is going out to the coast to take on Southern California. Big one for Notre Dame because a loss probably knocks them out of the discussion. They are favored by 7.5 at Southern California. Mark, what do you think? There's a path for Southern California, but Notre Dame has not only been playing good football of late, they've been beating people up.
Beating their Power 4 opponents by 39 points.
Yeah, they are winning some football games, not just taking it easy. So I'll take Notre Dame to cover that one. Elijah Campbell.
Notre Dame as well. Much better football team.
All right. Frank?
Me too.
All right. Clean sweep for the Irish on that one. Iron Bowl, Alabama favored by 11.5 at home over Auburn. Bama hoping to keep any kind of playoff hopes alive. Elijah Campbell, I'll start with you.
I think Auburn covers.
Auburn to cover.
They're going to make that one hairy.
Yeah. You know what? I'll go next, and I'll agree with you. Again, I think Alabama wins the football game, but give me those 11.5 points to play with before kickoff. Frank?
I agree with that.
Auburn plus the points. And Mark?
I'm going to go with y'all experts, Auburn.
Well,
another clean sweep.
Yeah. I'm glad you threw. I hope you air quoted the word experts when you say, at least in your mind, Mark. I hope. Frank, we'll go back to you to start. Oregon and Washington playing in Eugene. Now, obviously, Oregon's having a fine year, but last year, Washington kind of ruined it for them. Remember, Washington beat Oregon twice by a combined 6 points and kept Oregon out of the playoff. So is there payback? We'll see. But again, Oregon at home minus 18.5, Frank.
Ooh. Washington.
Washington plus the points. Mark.
I'm going to go with Oregon.
Oregon to make a statement, says Mark. Elijah Campbell.
I think Washington covers. Maybe a backdoor cover here because taking the Ducks and big spreads has kind of bit me in the rear this year.
I was leaning where Mark was, and that Oregon, but do they? I don't know. I mean, revenge would be the main reason to make a statement, not
to run up a score.
And just to be like, you know what? Don't ever think about ever playing for Washington again, any recruit anywhere ever again. This is how bad they are now, or something like that. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So give me those points. I'll take Washington plus the 18.5. All right, guys, wild card time now. Frank, you have LSU 6-point favorite. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. That's not your game. Hold on, Frank. My bad. No, Frank, your game. I'm sorry. My bad.
Boo.
I'm sorry. Yep, 5-yard penalty on me.
Boo,
Frank, your game is Tennessee 11-point favorites at Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt.
Vandy plus the points. All right. Mark, your game is the LSU-Oklahoma game. LSU at home minus 6.
Ooh. LSU.
LSU. I could appreciate the wavering there because is LSU checked out? Oklahoma's not now. They feel good, but, man, LSU better win that game.
Two teams in different trajectories
they
right now. The
that.
vibes are completely different.
Let's see. Elijah Campbell, you have got Arizona State. 8.5-point favorites down the road in Tucson against Arizona. 8.5.
Man. Arizona's a corpse. Give me the state to cover that.
And finally, yours truly has Georgia, 18.5-point favorites over Georgia Tech. Tech plus the points. Tech's not bad, and Georgia's had its moments where they're just like,
They play with their food a lot.
Yeah, they do. So give me those points. We'll see. All right, and that game's tonight, by the way, coming up in a little bit. Finally, guys, back to the Tennessee-Vandy game for the tiebreaker. Total offense for Diego Pavia against the Vols. Total offense, Diego Pavia against the Vols in Nashville. And, Mark, I'll let you go first.
227.
227 says Mark. Frank?
214.
214. All right, nice and tight in there. I'll let Elijah go last. I like where Mark is. Mark, I'm going to give us a little bit of cushion here, but about the same as what you got with Frank. I'll go 245. 245.
All right, what did Frank
We got
put?
214. We got 227. We got 245.
Okay, 205.
205. So Elijah Campbell is basically taking the $1 Bob number.
I'll take the lowest here.
That's right. There you go. All right. So far, Frank and Mark, Elijah and I are tied at 34, 30, and 1 against the spread. So a little over 500. But we've had a lot of winners so far this season. So you find a way to beat us and the other guy, and we will hook you guys up with one of our craft beer passports. So, again, happy Thanksgiving, boys. We appreciate you listening to us. Enjoy all the football this weekend, especially tomorrow. And we'll let you know on Monday. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Frank. That's Mark. And that's this week's edition of the Wild Card Showdown.
We have agreed on all of these.
Yeah.
So our wild card game might be the deciding factor.
Yeah, or the tiebreaker. Never know.
Or the tiebreaker. I meant for the season. I mean, we got.
Oh, for the season.
We're deadlocked going into this final week.
Yeah. Luckily we have games to play still, and we'll take this puppy through the pro football playoffs and such. So we have to change gears.
More.
Yeah, there is. I thought about throwing a couple of NFLs in here, and then I just like, nah.
It's rivalry week.
Yeah, just had to do
all across the board.
And there's some games we didn't play that just didn't seem to have as much national implication. That Notre Dame Southern California game, obviously a big rivalry, but Notre Dame. I mean, I'll say it. I suppose I can't go to 100%, but I'm like 95+% must win. I think I think they're. It's just that NIU loss is just such a bad line. I loved it for them in the moment for Northern Illinois. It was great. It was great. But I will say Notre Dame again, not just beating people lately. They are
beating the hell out of people.
Yeah, they are really beating people.
Let me make it a nice adjustment to the stat I threw out earlier because I forgot to clarify. Since the Northern Illinois loss, they are beating their Power 4 opponents by 39 points.
Yeah,
as well as having a 35-point win over Army and I think it's a 39-point win over Navy.
Something like that.
37 maybe.
They made sure there was zero doubt.
Yeah. So there has not been a single close game they've played in since that loss to Northern Illinois. I think a loss would be pretty detrimental here for playoff chances.
And yet it's funny, Notre Dame, even for Notre Dame, they're kind of quietly doing, they just haven't really been discussed that much as somebody who can go win this thing. And maybe people don't think they can.
Especially defensively. Defensively, man, teams just don't score on them at all.
Well,
they smother people.
But I would say must win. And again, for Bama, we all picked Auburn to cover. 11.5 feels like a lot with where Auburn is in their headspace right now.
And how they at least move the ball.
Yeah. Again, just don't turn it over.
Turnovers.
Yeah,
they might win that game.
Right. Well, that could be interesting. But
I've dumped on them all year long, but they at least move the ball well. They just have been comically bad at giving the ball to the other team.
We'll see what happens there. But again, Elijah and I both 34, 30, and 1 going into the final week of the regular season. It's crazy. And we had some pretty good ebb and flow, you and me.
We did. It's a game of runs.
Yeah.
It's a game of runs. And now
really
we're in the fourth quarter, starting the fourth quarter, and we're tied.
This is what happens here. So good stuff. All right. Some final thoughts on Carolina Clemson when the postgame show returns.
same way I expect him to be the focal point every week we played in the, whether it be an SEC game or non-SEC game, a home game, away game. It's a heavy burden to wear the crown, and we expect him to practice well and play well. And this game's no different for him in his preparation and how he's getting ready to play.
That's Gamecock offensive coordinator and, of course, quarterbacks coach Dowell Loggins speaking on Lenoris Sellers and what he expects to see out of Lenoris tomorrow. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show here on a Football Friday. Again, thanks to Columbia Craft for all they've done for us this week with Rivalry Week. Shane Beamer made a point of talking about the fact that Lenoris admitted to him Lenoris didn't, even though he's from Florence, didn't really grow up paying a lot of attention to this rivalry. And look, on the one hand, I get where Shane was coming from. And like he said, I was kind of disappointed to hear that. On the other, I think I told you on Tuesday's show, like, that doesn't bother me that much.
Prefer him to go in there with a cold indifference.
Yeah. It's like, listen, I'm here to get the ball snapped to me, make plays, and win the game.
Make magic happen.
Yeah, and I think maybe, look, I don't know. We hear it a lot. I mean, you and I both, even if I've been doing this longer than you have. You worked in an NFL town, too, for a long time and covered the Titans in addition to covering SEC football and what we do here now. We talk to a lot of players. Hey, listen, we can bulletin board this and social media that and jawing and backing and forth, and then they kick a ball off and you get popped in the head and it's time to go play football. And you can't really worry about who you're beating. It shouldn't. In the grand scheme, it won't be a whole lot different tomorrow. There may come a time when you're thinking about it a little bit, but I don't. We've watched Lenoris evolve so quickly, and you don't want to put too much on him. But like Langston was telling us, I mean, when I get it from a dude that played in the NFL, I take it a little bit differently. Like, I'm seeing something in him that I don't see in a lot of people. And I've seen a lot of people.
Right.
And that's a thing.
Especially a lot of people who have quarterbacked this program.
Yeah.
I mean, he put him up there with, he said the name of Lenoris Sellers and Connor Shaw, same sentence. And we know the type of reverence that Connor has around here because of his ability to win football games. And Lenoris showed he could win you one against Missouri. When Plan A and Plan B went down, man, you relied on 16 to win you the football game. 16 won you the football game.
To do it, you'll have to do it on the road. And Shane Beamer on the entire ball club, not just Lenoris's ability away from Columbia, but the entire team away from home and what he expects to see.
Yeah, I do believe it's the leadership because when all heck is breaking loose around us in the stadium and on the sidelines, you want to have those guys as a coaching staff, certainly, but you want the players to be able to look to the older guys, leaders, and see the confidence and poise that they have and to know that, everything's going to be all right. So it certainly goes back to our leadership, playing well, obviously. And then without a doubt, I think it goes back to just the way you train in the offseason and what you do in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, putting your team in really, really tough environments and situations, just like a road game is, where they have to learn how to deal with adversity and stick together and things like that as well. And we put our players in a lot of adverse situations throughout the year, whether it be on the practice field or in team building exercises, whatever it might be throughout the year.
So, listen, they've been through it. This year, they early when things were different. You went to Kentucky and controlled that game throughout. You went to Alabama. You played well. You didn't get it done, but you played a better game than a lot of people thought you would, and you learned a lot about yourself. And since that game on the road, you haven't lost. You went to Norman, and I know Oklahoma's not where Oklahoma typically is, but you didn't just beat them. You really, really took it to them. And now you need to go do that, one more time tomorrow in a very difficult environment. But you've been in difficult environments. So I do believe, and I'll just say, Elijah, you and I on the staff picks at Gamecock Central, you and I have both picked Carolina victories. I've picked 30-23. You picked 21-17.
I think it'd be a little bit lower scoring of a game.
So I really feel, look, it will shock me not at all if Clemson wins the football game. But if you want me to be as objective as I possibly can, I will tell you that having seen the two teams play a lot, especially in the last month, if those trends hold tomorrow, I just think South Carolina has that little bit more to win this football game.
They have the gear on defense, I think, is required to be able to go on the road and win a game like this. And I think Clemson's too banged up on the offensive line. I have a serious concern about Josh Simon's availability, and even if he is available, at what extent is he going to be? He means a lot to that offense. But I do think Carolina will be able to run the ball well enough to manufacture the, requisite amount of points to win this football game, and the defense will be able to take advantage of Clemson's offensive line well enough to make sure that they aren't running up and down the field with the ball either.
Always appreciate Langston Moore joining us. Remove the Chains on Twitter, athletesandartists.net. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli, the AP, he'll be in the press box tomorrow. Elijah will be up there as well. And good to see our friend Michael Haney stopping in for a little bit, too. Happy Thanksgiving once again to all of y'all. Happy holidays. Hope you have a safe and enjoyable weekend, whether you're heading up to Clemson tomorrow or just enjoying football all across the country. We'll do it again on Monday. See ya.